consent that the Senate proceed to the
We
executive.
are in a quorum call.
I ask that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session and consider the following nominations en bloc. 599, calendar 693. That the Senate vote on the nominations en bloc without intervening action or debate. The motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate. That any statements related to the nominations be printed in the record. That the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Missouri.
Mr. President, I object and submit a statement for the record.
The objection is heard.
Will the Senator yield for a question? Will the Senator yield for a question?
I think he has the floor.
The Senator from Maine.
I'd like to direct a question through the chair to the Senator from Indiana and ask the reason for his objection.
Does the Senator from Missouri yield?
Do I get a response from the Senator from Indiana? Mr. President, we have two qualified nominees reported out on a bipartisan basis by the Armed Services Committee at a moment of heightened international tension. The Senator from Missouri, I said Indiana, I said the Senator from Missouri objected with no reason whatsoever. I asked him for his reasoning, and he did not respond. He walked out of the room. I don't understand such an irresponsible action. This is a matter of national security. We have no reason for this objection. I understand that he's objecting to all nominees at the Department of Defense because he's upset about accountability for the withdrawal from Afghanistan. We have taken action to deal with that question. In the National Defense Authorization Act, which we just passed, there was a commission created expressly to examine the issue of Afghanistan, how we got in, why we got in, what we did, how we left, on a bipartisan basis. I believe that was reported out by the committee unanimously in the National Defense Authorization Act after the committee's markup. So that's accountability. In addition, the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, which I also serve on, had at least 10, I think it was more like a dozen hearings on the withdrawal from Afghanistan in the latter part of 2021, before the end of the year. A dozen hearings. I was going to ask the Senator from Missouri, how many hearings were held when he was a member of the Armed Services Committee and his party was in charge of the committee? How many hearings were held on President Trump's agreement to leave Afghanistan in Doha in February of 2020? That was the decision that led to President Biden effectuating the treaty, not the treaty, but the agreement that the Trump administration had made with the Taliban that led to the evacuation of Americans and American troops from Afghanistan. You know how many hearings, Mr. President, were held by the Armed Services Committee on the Doha Agreement, which was effectively guaranteeing we would leave Afghanistan with some minor conditions? Zero. Zero. Talk about accountability. There were no hearings or discussion in the committee that I can recall of the Doha Agreement where the Trump administration agreed with the Taliban we would leave by May 1st of 2021 as long as the Taliban didn't attack our troops. And now the Senator from Missouri is holding up nominees because of he doesn't like the way the evacuation occurred, or he wants more questions from the Secretary of Defense. We had hearings over and over. And what's going on here is a compromise of national security because the senator from Missouri has questions that I guess haven't been answered, although I believe he was at those hearings, had the opportunity to examine and cross-examine the Secretary of Defense and other officials of the Biden administration. But here we are at a moment of national tension, and that's putting it mildly, with nominees for in charge of space and readiness. The senator of Missouri today blocked the consideration and confirmation of an Assistant Secretary of Defense for readiness and for space, two areas of critical national concern, for reasons that he wouldn't state. He walked out of the room. He walked out of the room. That's not accountability. If you're going to do something that endangers national defense and block nominees that have been reported out by the committee on a bipartisan basis, accountability is standing in this room and telling the American people why he's doing it. Accountability means being responsible for your actions, not saying, I object, and then walking out. And that's what happened just now on this floor. I've never seen anything like it. These are well-qualified nominations, reported out by the committee on a bipartisan basis, and we need them in these jobs. We need them now, today, in these jobs. And now that's not going to be possible because one senator, for reasons that he refused to explain or expand upon, objected. Mr. President, that's not responsible. That's not responsible. That's endangering national security. And to do so without any explanation is just, I believe, not appropriate for a member of this body. So, Mr. President, we'll renew these requests at a later date and hope that the senator will have thought better of this action and allow these nominations to go forward as requested by a bipartisan majority of the Armed Services Committee. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.